G'day guys, welcome back. My name is Wildkard. Super Rugby round 14, the last game of the weekend. Western Force versus Queensland Reds. Yeah, this is might be just a lowly game in your rugby schedule, but this is actually quite important to make the last couple of rounds of Super Rugby extremely exciting for that bottom spot of the top six going into the finals. So yeah, Western Force, the fact that the Western Force has beaten the Reds again has really kind of maybe just opened up the door a little bit for, the Waratahs to potentially get through. And potentially, yeah, I don't think we're going to look at that in a second, but the Waratahs has now got a little bit of a chance, not a big chance, a little bit of a chance of getting through to the top six. So let's have a look at what is actually happening here. So you need to be the top six to make it in the finals. And the Waratahs are just 2 points below the Reds. Now, there's 2 weeks left in the rounds. Now, you might be saying, oh, Highlanders are pretty close. Highlanders actually can't get there anymore because they've got a bye and then a final round against the top of the ladder. So it's very, even if they win the game against the Hurricanes, the fact that they got only 1 game left means that the Highlanders are very unlikely to actually make it to the top. So yeah, the Reds got a losing bonus point here, which is kind of important. But ultimately, it really comes down to the run home, right? So if we look at the run home for the Reds, Moana Pacifica away, Fiji and Endura at home. Yeah, this is the two teams at the bottom of the ladder. The Moana Pacifica has this is basically the final couple of rounds of their entire season, and they really wanted to, and that's the last home game. So can they pull out a massive upset against the Reds? They've done it in the first round. They beat the Juros in a pretty commanding fashion. And last year, we saw Moana Pacifica do some outstanding rugby under the leadership of Adi Savia, albeit he's not here this year. But, the players definitely have the talent to pull out some sort of upset. So, yeah, away, final game. The club is getting disbanded. So maybe they will show up and put up a massive performance. Just throw the kitchen sink at it. And I think if you're a Reds fan, you will be sweating going into this game. So that's a really interesting game. And then Moana Pacifica final game is away against the Brumbies. And then the second game against the Jura as well. They have a pretty, struggling quite a bit this season for the Enduros. Final game, maybe they will pull out something, even though this is away in Queensland, maybe they will pull out something and, there's potential there as well for the Enduros to come through. Now, the Reds needs to lose at least one of the 2 games to potentially get knocked out of the top 6, and the Waratahs, on the other hand, has to win both of their games to potentially make it into the top 6. And they got the Brumbies at home. This will be a great game. I will be going to that. And then Western Force away. So no easy run to the finals, but it is definitely possible. The Waratahs they beat the Brumbies early in the season. They lost the Western Force just that few rounds ago at home. And, the way that the Waratahs are playing in the last couple of rounds, comparison to the way they played against the Western Force, much improved. So there's actually a good chance that the Waratahs could make it if they beat both the teams, and we're going to have to pray for Moana Pacifica or Fiji and Jura to pull up a bit of an upset to get the Reds out of the top 6. The Brumbies, on the other hand, have Moana Pacifica away, so there is a chance that they lose to the Waratahs and lose to the Moana Pacifica, and potentially, gets knocked out if the Reds only lose one of the 2 games. So there's still a chance, but it's very unlikely the Brumbies will lose both those games. But it's going to be an exciting weekend coming up next weekend. For the Western Force, I think they're just a little bit too far away to actually reach it. Even if they win both of the games, bonus point. They basically have to win both games bonus points, and then hoping that the Reds and Brumbies lose all of their games 2 rounds in a row to completely to have a chance of making it in there. Not impossible, but it's going to be very hard. So yeah, so Waratahs, a lot of Waratahs fans will be supporting Moana Pacifica, and and Fijian draw in the coming 2 rounds, which will be quite interesting. I'm sure I'm definitely gonna support support the non-Aussie teams for a chance for the Waratahs to make it the top 6. So the Western Force in this game with Donaldson early injured. He had a bit of a, I think he had a bit of a hamstring problem, leg problem. The Western Force coming this game with a bit of didn't look nearly as good as they did in the blowout game against the Reds. Without Donaldson, the decision making is a little bit more slower. You can see it's a bit slower around the rocks. But the good thing about Western Force this week, just like they did so well against the Reds and so well against the Crusaders, is that they backed themselves. They didn't try to kick penalty goals. They pushed themselves. They actually, play to control the clock a lot of times, especially in the second half, to just grind the clock down and try to work the way into, understanding that even if they don't score, just by holding on to the ball and running the clock down and making it difficult for you to exit, is a massive factor in terms of, running down the clock and winning the game. And instead of just like, oh, let's try kick 3 points or something and let the Reds run back at us potentially for a try with 8-10 minutes left in the final bit of the game, right? So the Western Force managed the clock really, really well. So there was a bit of an interesting moment, I thought. So Trevon Pritchard was on the field in the second half, and he got the ball in the backfield, and he punted. I did a massive punt. He kicked the ball from inside, like on the line of his own 22, all the way to the Western Force 22-meter line. So it's like over 50-meter punt down the field. And then for Lomax, right, to catch the ball for the Western Force side, and then his kick back wasn't nearly as far. Was probably just made it to, probably about 10 meters short. Then, he wasn't able to get it all the way back to the Reds 22. So it is interesting to see the rugby league player doing a bit of a kicking and to see how he handled that sort of situation. Wasn't, to be honest, he just punted down the middle of the field. The way he almost looked like he shanked it a little bit, to be honest. Looked like he was angled to kick the ball maybe out, but he ended up just punting it straight down the middle. But yeah, it was just interesting to see that he may have a little bit of kicking game, and if it's something that could, I would like to see a bit more and to see whether or not it's a possibility to having a fullback, because he's pretty good under the high ball. The Western Force set him up a number of opportunities to try to recoup with the high ball, and even both box kicks and just up and unders from the midfield as well. So did some pretty interesting stuff there for me, for my personal enjoyment. So there was one thing about the lineouts. The Reds lineouts were horrendous this game. They lost so many lineouts, both under pressure and just like, being overthrown and being just taken by the Western Force. Just really, really, really poor. I think that's, something that I did not expect. The Reds lineout hasn't been that great, to be honest, the whole season. It's something that, once again, is really disappointing to see like Wallaby level players not able to execute a lineout. But there's one thing I want to ask everyone. I think a lot of you guys probably remember the 2011 Rugby World Cup final, All Blacks versus the French. And the only try that was scored in this game, it's called the Woodcock, right? The Tony Woodcock, the world famous Tony Woodcock move, where the All Blacks send up 2 pods, about 5 meter attacking line out. They send up 2 pods, right? And the ball went to the second pod, and the popped ball down for Tony Woodcock to loop around and ran through the middle of the 2 pods. And French also lifted up 2 pods to try to contest this one, to run straight through the middle for the try, the Woodcock move. Now this move obviously doesn't work anymore because teams no longer set up 2 pods to contest in front of their own try line. So it just shows how time has changed and the teams have got smarter than that. But when was the last time Super Rugby actually just teams send up 2 pods? I know you're going to say Moana Pacific last week, but my point is, it's like incredibly rare now, right? Incredibly rare. In fact, the Moana Pacifica double jump springbok style from last week was probably the only one from this whole season. Is it just me? Like they just don't do that anymore. They don't like what? Why do they not do the dummy? Send up two pods and then have one of them to be the dummy, and then you just throw to the one that's just time it a little bit differently, and then throw the one that you know that's open, right? Or whichever one that the opposition don't contest, you throw it to that one. I just don't know why they don't do that at all now. Like it's almost non-existent in modern day of rugby. And so yeah, maybe someone can explain this to me. I don't. I scratch my head with this one. So maybe someone can uh, can 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 enlighten me why they don't do this anymore. Because watching Fezler do their lineouts, it's like the Western Force is like, yeah, we know it's going to this guy, and it just puts him under so much pressure because there's only one guy that's that's gonna jump, and then it's gonna get contested, right? Even if it was a delayed jump from the Western Force, it could still disrupt the play, and just you could just it's so yeah, it's so hard for the ball thrower if you only have one guy to throw to at all times, and I feel like is there something that's being lost in the spreadsheets that the teams are looking at? But yeah, let me know your thoughts on that. Outside of that, the um Western Force did a number of nice crossfields, both out of the Hemish Stewart and number 9. Is it Hemish Stewart? I think Hamish, what's his name? Hamish Stewart? What's his name? Anyway, yeah, Hamish Stewart. So some pretty nice crossfield kicks. There was actually a try, a crossfield to Lomax. He didn't get the ball, but the ball kind of like bounced back for them to score. So really nice, play there as well from the Western Force. But overall, especially in the second half, the Western Force did really, really well. They just pinned the Reds in their kicking game again and again and again into their 22, and the Reds was not able to exit. Not able to exit. King Wilson was once again probably the best playmaker on the red side. Just so good. There were literally times where there was literally one time where the Reds was camped inside their own 22, and then the Western and then Wilson got everybody out. And I think the Reds had an opportunity to really pull ahead in the first half before the end of the first half, and it wasn't able to execute. Execute. I think Carter Gordon, yeah, maybe he has been, yeah, just not really as smooth as they're rushing some of the decisions a little bit, and really botched, at least one opportunity for the Reds, almost a guaranteed try for the Reds, in a game that they probably could have got a few more points if he hasn't, if he has been a little bit more patient or just with some of his decision making there. Anyway, that's enough for that. Let's have a look at the match stats of the game. 3 tries to the Western Force, the Reds 2. 381 run meters to the Reds, 386. 145 carries for the Western Force, 106 for the Reds. We've got 14 turnovers conceded against the Western Force, 13 against the Reds. 141 tackles made for the Western Force, only 17 missed tackles. The Reds, on the other hand, 203 tackles made, 23 missed tackles there. Not too bad either in terms of completion rate. Kicks in play, 23 kicks for the Western Force, 20 for the Reds. 1 conversion missed. Hit the goalpost. Well, it could have been a big problem if the Reds actually scored a try at the end. But overall, the kick meters was pretty low. 654 for the Western Force, 479 for the Reds. Now the lineouts. This is something that I think the coaching staff would just be like gouging their eyes out in the post-match reviews. What is this stuff on my desk? 12 lineouts for the Western Force, only 2 lost. The Reds, 8 lineouts, 6 lost. My goodness, it is crazy. Scrum was pretty even, 4 for the Western Force, 7 for the Reds. No crazy advantage for either side. Penalties conceded, 10 against the Western Force, 7 against the Queensland Reds. Now let's have a quick recap of the points. So, 7 minutes in, the Western Force had a penalty. They backed themselves to go for the maul. And sure enough, the maul goes through. Tarzano went in for the try. The Reds actually had a maul as well, where they peeled off and they created an obstruction for themselves, which again, just execution, the 4-pack for the Reds, execution just not quite there. Considering the quality of the players that the Reds have in the 4-pack, multiple Wallabies and, world-class former All Blacks, the front rowers just not really executing. It's a bit of disappointing, to be honest. 7 points to nil for the Western Force there. 21 minutes in the game. King Wilson, some magic getting the Reds out of their own 22. And then there was some, again, there was another run from Wilson, got really close to the try line, and then just bunch of pick and dries. And then Bryo goes over for the try. 7 points to the 7. 30 minutes into the game, Lomax actually did the knock up and catch the ball from a deliberate knock on. So just like last week, he was in between the passing channel and he knocked the ball upwards. And unlike last week where he just like completely, not able to catch the ball at all, not in position to catch the ball at all, he knocked the ball upwards and he actually recovered to save himself from potentially getting sent off in front of a Kiwi referee. I'm not sure if the Kiwi referee is going to let him get away with that. So he did that. There was another one later on with Greeley where the ball, he was in a much better position. He literally hit him in the chest and he would try to catch, couldn't quite get there. But it is this one last week, he knocked it up and couldn't catch it at all, not even in position to catch it at all. But this time he actually caught it. Half time, 7 points apiece for both teams. Second half, and just before halftime, I saw the Reds had a lot of opportunities, some sustained pressure inside the Western Force half, could not get there. Second half starts, 3 minutes in second half, there was a penalty against the Reds. Lots of pressure built on Western Force on one side of the field. The ball came out to Stewart, crossfield kick for Lomax. The ball gets knocked back, and then Greeley scooped it up for the try. 14 points to 7. 47 minutes in, looked like the Reds scored this one, but there was no evidence of the grounding. Is that Reds here? I think it's Reds. There's no evidence of grounding. Wilson almost scored here. 50 minutes, it doesn't matter. The Reds had a scrum. The scrum kind of like stood up a little bit. Almost, I was surprised didn't get a penalty. The ball came out. The Reds attack line was really deep. The ball went out wide. Quick hands out wide to Junkyard Dog. The Western Force rush defense was beaten on the outside. Just running 14 points to 14. 54 minutes into the game, the Western Force building more pressure, getting more penalties. There was a penalty advantage. The ball went out to, I think, one of either the number, I think it was the number 10. Who there was a different number 10. What's his name? Burley. He just did a grubber kick behind, and the ball was recovered by the Western Force team, and then just and there was a quick breakdown. Ball quickly passed out wide to Tazano, who ran in for the try. 19 points to 14. And after this, the Reds tried a more obstruction, tried so many different things, couldn't get themselves over. And then the Western Force just kept the ball pinging down inside the Reds 22, knowing that your lineout is shit. They just kept doing that, and the Reds could not exit with their own shitty lineouts. Must be extremely frustrating to watch if you are a Queenslander. But anyway, thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys maybe for a URC review this week. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next week for the news. Cheers.